Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to Satsang. I'm going to check here, make sure that we have sound, everything is functioning perfectly. There we are. And everything is functioning. Excellent. Excellent. Welcome everyone. Trust you can all hear me and everything. John says it's a stormy night in Ireland. Wow. I need to get to Ireland. I have been to England, but I need to get to Ireland. As you can tell, that's where my ancestors are from. Dave Rowe is hi from Massachusetts. Viola, hi from Bulgaria. Hey, GP from Niagara Falls. Hi, Mary. Did my assistant get in touch with you about getting all that stuff worked out with your iPad and the like? We were going to try to set up a call to make that work for you. So, La Signora Donna. Greetings, G, from Jonathan, the Signora in South Wales. Good to be here. Hi, Jonathan. Carrie, hi, Carrie, from Oakland, California. I used to live in Fremont for like 13 years. Yeah. Rob, okay, very good. Thank you, Mary. Rob Fikri, hi from London. Hi to you, Rob. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Satsang. As always, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to say today. I have no idea what's going to come to mind. I try to show up empty, which simply means I show up without an agenda. You know, to me, the best way to be is to be empty. And when I say empty, what I mean is not void. I don't need vacuous, like, right? What I mean is that your natural creativity, your natural love, your natural communicativeness is not burdened with preconceived ideas as to how things should go, or you know, the flow life should take. I find that when you actually show up empty all the time, that marvelous things happen. Very, very wonderful, creative, out of nowhere kind of things happen. So emptiness is one of the most beautiful of the Buddhist teaching, and it's really at the heart and soul of it. It's the essence of the Heart Sutra, which, if you haven't had a chance to read, I highly recommend the book by a fellow named Red Pine, the Heart Sutra, translated by Red Pine. To me, it's without a doubt the best. But simply what it means is that you're not stuck anywhere. You're not, you know, all of us get stuck in a sense of identity. That's the whole problem. The whole subject of awakening is the awakening from the false sense of identity, so that you discover that you are in fact no thing at all. And people just say, you'll hear non-dual teachers just say, you're nothing, I'm nothing. And that's true, but they're not talking about like total void, right? Nothing, right? I mean, absolute non-existence. That would be nihilistic, and it's not at all what non-duality is about. What it means is that you're no thing. When asked, who are you? Nisargadatta responded, no one in particular. Now that's a beautiful, beautiful way of putting it. When we believe, our minds get very focused. They get very attached to things. And so I think that early on, I get this image of myself as being a particular way, in a particular form, with a particular set of characteristics. And I kind of get frozen there, as if I'm living a photograph of myself from the past. it's kind of a common experience that when two people get in a relationship and they live together for a while, all of a sudden one day it's like you're living with a stranger. This because we have these fixed ideas of how people are, and we tend to want to keep them in that shape. And then when all of a sudden some kind of behavior or word or something kind of pops out and is out of the box, suddenly our whole sense of who they are gets questioned. And it can be either quite liberating or it can be quite disturbing. So that, since it's true that we human beings are transforming constantly, that how we think, how we feel, how we act, how we react is actually transforming all the time, it's not really possible for us to give at any given time an actual accounting of who you are. You can only speak about who you are in this moment. And yet, you have been the entire time. This is the great mystery. This is the great wonder of non-dual inquiry. Something in you has been consistent, has been there the entire time. Something has been registering and monitoring experience the entire time, your entire life, and undoubtedly before. That's in a direct distinction between that and the one that's showing up in this moment, which is not stable, which is not the same. You are not the same as you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Reality is you're not the same as you were yesterday. The thing that limits us is that we get a sense of identity, of a self-image, and we hold on to it as if it was a fixed thing, and it isn't. And in the process of doing that, we completely miss that which actually is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But the reason we miss it is because it is pure emptiness. It is pure potential. It is simply being without being anything in particular. Can you follow that? You just are. You are not this or that. You just are. You just are. There's no other way I can put it. You exist with no other attribute whatsoever except existence. This is, in fact, what you are. You simply are being itself. That sense of presence we all know. Let yourself be with that sense of presence and nothing else. No external references, no internal references, not referencing any thought, not referencing the past or what happened to you or experiences you had, not referencing the future, which is, your aspirations and things you would like to have happen. I want to, attain enlightenment and help the world. Simply, and even the present idea you have of yourself. Get rid of absolutely everything. Put everything aside that you can. And there'll be one thing you cannot put aside. And that will be the pure being that you are. So that's the emptiness. Emptiness is existence. To see what direction we all happen to go to today, whatever it is that pops up on people's hearts and on people's minds. Show. I don't know why they said don't show that. Please like and share, by the way. It's always helpful. Get other people coming. Let's see. Ursula from Madeira Island in Portugal. Hi, Ursula. John Watson is also a stormy night in Glasgow, Scotland. Wow, storms up in the Isles there. Carrie Brogan, namaste from Australia. My goodness, what time is it there where you are in Australia? Are you in Sydney or are you in Perth? Which side of the country are you on, Carrie? Hindu Full Speed Leaded, hey G, from Aberdeen, Scotland. Hey dude. Jane Flintoff, hi from the UK. Hi Jane. Ava from Poland, 10 p.m. in Poland. This nice 10 p.m. in Poland came. Good to be here. Glad to have you. Coco's also in Australia. What time is it there, you guys? Anja, hello. Everyone from Germany. Liza says, hi GP. Greetings to everyone from the East Coast of the US. David Elaine, hi GP and all. Greetings from Southeast England, where we're being buffeted again by another storm. So I guess it's Wales, it's Ireland, it's Scotland, it's England. Wow. But happy to be sitting comfortably on our sofa and in the warm being part of Satsang. Great. Wow. Yeah, it's nice. I actually like storms. I find them very, very, very comforting. Chris Skills, hello GP. Can you speak about consciousness is orchestrating everything at once? Real mind twist this is I cannot confirm that there are other minds out there. I can only know the content of my mind. Chris feels not believing in solipsism, but that's our experience. We can't confirm the existence of other minds. That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. And it would be a solipsism if you look at yourself as this finite being, right? And this finite being is just living inside their head. That's basically what a solip. Nothing exists except myself. That's also what a narcissist is, by the way. So take it's a very clear observation that you cannot really know. You cannot confirm the objective existence of absolutely anything outside of your consciousness. I think what you're struggling with is that you still have a sense of consciousness as somehow being localized, that there's your consciousness and that there's my consciousness, that there's a consciousness over there, or maybe there. But it's a sense of being a personal consciousness. Consciousness is not personal. It doesn't belong to anyone. It is actually a waste of time to try to visualize or picture consciousness orchestrating everything all at once. The mind simply cannot do it. Okay? The only way you can understand that is to know that you are consciousness, to be that. And then the answer becomes clear. As long as there is a personal sense of consciousness, that is, consciousness confined to Chris skills, there will be this incapacity to be able to fathom the infinitude of consciousness in all of its forms appearing. But if the consciousness that you are is not personal, but universal, it is like space, it is everywhere, then it's not a big jump to see consciousness appearing both in you and externally to you, what we would consider to be externally to me. It is simply the field of consciousness. And in this instance, there's a feeling of presence that appears to be here in relationship to everything else. In another instance, it's a feeling of presence that here that seems to be relating to everything else. Again, it's almost, well, it is impossible to try to fathom it because you cannot take the infinite and illimitable and compress it into a concept. So what I would say to do is to explore the boundaries of consciousness. And when I'm talking about consciousness, I'm not talking about anything abstract. To explore the boundaries of consciousness, you simply withdraw into yourself, noting that which is registering and cognizing everything else. Right? Get to the consciousness that you know before we start trying to worry about the consciousness that is everywhere. Get to the consciousness that is at the heart and soul of you. Are you not aware right now? Are you not conscious? The answer is yes, you are. You are conscious. Now, when you are answering that question, where are you looking to determine if you are conscious? The place that you're looking, it's not external, because there's nothing out here that will tell you whether you're conscious or not. There's nothing internally that will really tell that. There's something very, very subtle that we recognize. We know that we are. You know that you are. You are what is. And if all the rest of it was a complete illusion, because I cannot confirm the existence of anything out there. And let's say it is all an illusion. You know, right now you could be asleep in a bed on another planet, dreaming you're an earthling, right? Or yelling at a wall in an insane asylum somewhere, right? We cannot. There's no way we can confirm anything out there, which means we cannot look to anything out there to confirm our own existence. But no matter how deluded I am, no matter how much I am hallucinating, there's one thing I cannot hallucinate, and that is my own being. I can have every illusion in the world. Everything I know, think, touch, feel could be an illusion, right? But the term illusion presupposes something is being eluded or deluded. So that sense, that self-aware sense of being, try to get to it without adding anything extra to it, to experience it, that is, experience yourself in your absolute pristine purity, not tainted at all, not colored in the slightest by any external sense of identity, by any form. It is simply a sense of being. And you know that you are. So in the world of illusion, the whole thing about illusion is they are not, right? So what is it that is not an illusion, that is not an appearance of something else, but is absolutely rock solid, steady? Okay. First, anchor yourself there. Then, if this question even comes up at that point, we can deal with it. The problem is you're trying to answer this question from a context that cannot possibly grasp the answer. So let's first go to the place where that answer would exist and see if the question even arises. As you sink into that sense of just being with nothing else added, begin to explore its boundaries. Does it have a boundary? Well, wait a minute. That boundary would be appearing to me. So is that boundary real or an illusion? Well, it's an appearance. And of course, if I'm aware of a boundary, I'm simultaneously aware of what's on the other side, that it is a boundary. A boundary to what? Right? This is how you do the inquiry of deeply exploring yourself as you are, exploring what you know to be true. And the one thing you can be absolutely sure is true is that you are. Now, as what? That's the question. Nobody here will disagree with the idea that they exist. We all do. The question is, as what? We have a million ideas as to what that existence is. I'm saying explore it. Find out. See what you can take away from it. your model there, I can't tell if anything out there exists at all. Good. So keep going till you get to that place where you're absolutely rock steady that this does exist. And you'll find there's nothing there but yourself. Not even a thought of yourself, and not the image you're holding of yourself, but just the pure, undiluted sense of your own being. And it's so subtle, it is so quiet, it is so still that when we try to approach that with the mind, it doesn't see anything there and it wants to run away. Because in that space is the end of the mind. So focus, I say, not just you, Chris, for everybody, right? Focus your attention on that which is verifiably real. And that's you. And put away everything that isn't verifiably real. And what you end up with is pure consciousness that has no boundaries whatsoever, has no limitations. Then you discover that you are the emptiness, and that this emptiness, this consciousness, is universal. It is not localized anywhere. It has no particular identity, but has the potential for all identities, which simply come and go. Universes that come and go. So how's that, Chris? John Wild says, greetings from England. Hello, Sean. William Callahan says, thanks, GP. Did I do something earlier? Did I not see you? Anyway, but you're welcome. Mark C, wisdom and love, and my life flows between the two. I love the metaphor of flowing, as there is no fixed point. Yes, that was the great revelation to me, the real flowering of wisdom for me, from Zen Buddhism, of when I finally actually saw the real meaning of emptiness, that it was simply positionless. It was consciousness that was not stuck anywhere, that was not identified with anything, that was not a thing, but was very much alive, very much existent. And that, yes, wisdom and love, my life flows between the two. Yes, the quote from Nisargadatta, one of the most beautiful quotes of all time. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, he said, to know that you are nothing is wisdom. To know that you are love, to know that you are everything is love. Between these two, my life flows. Beautiful. Just beautiful. And that's what it is. And you're not stuck anywhere. The moment you think of yourself as anything, right? I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm white, I'm black, I'm Asian, I'm old, I'm young, I'm tall, I'm short. The moment you think of yourself in any terms whatsoever, you have put the boundary on consciousness artificially. You can't actually do it, but you have created an image in your mind of an object, which is consciousness, by the way. It's just a very kind of a restricted vibration of consciousness. Consciousness has no limits on it. So thank you, Mark. Rob Victory, can the character be killed off slowly, or does it happen suddenly with a big aha moment? How would you kill Mickey Mouse? You can't kill something that never existed. That's what you see. And that's a seeing. It's not really, there is a big difference between the direct path and progressive path. But don't think of awakening as this all of a sudden aha moment. And, that's it. Angels sing and, dolphins are constant unfolding. There's a glimmer. Just the fact that you could answer the question about the character means you've already stepped out of the character, right? Now, what's remaining is there's still thoughts that are telling you that somehow you've still got a relationship with this character. Well, those thoughts aren't true. You don't. You never did. Right? And therein lies the difficulty. We keep believing our minds, which keeps wanting to make a path that we have to go on. You can't kill off the character because the character isn't alive. You cannot destroy what does not exist. It's an illusion. You don't have to get rid of the oasis in the desert. You realize that there is no oasis in the desert. You don't have to kill the snake that you see in the dim morning lights. You don't have to kill it because it's not a snake. It's a rope. So there's nothing there to kill. Right? People talk about ego deaths and, killing off my ego, or and like, there's nothing there to kill. You don't kill anything. You see that it never existed in the first place, right? And that can come as a little or it can come as a huge aha, or a tiny little insight. Now, you've had the insight, and you're having it again right now. You're seeing it as I'm saying it. I can feel it, right? Now, don't think that that's supposed to be this explosion. It might be, but just the insight that you've had, right, can very well trigger a whole bunch of doubting thoughts. And we've relied on our minds our whole life. They're not just going to go away quietly. So that things go, and that idea, it doesn't exist at all. Oh, that's not possible. And the mind will just start showing you all sorts of things, and will try to instill doubt into you that, you don't really see it. You need the big aha moment. You don't, right? That's a big myth in spirituality. You don't need the big aha moment. You don't need it, the definitive aha. It can be a whole series of little seeings. But what you are seeing is completely real and has been there the entire time. As it unfolds as a seen truth, is itself being witnessed by the very thing that we're all seeking. You understand that? The seeker and the seeking are both being perceived by that which is sought. You're conscious right now, right? That's it. So anything that tells you that consciousness, that there's a better consciousness, a bigger one, right? The grand Pazzuti of consciousnesses is out there. You just have to go a little bit further for it. No, that's why this is called the direct path, right? There is no path to go on. You're it. What you are looking for is where you are looking from. And you're always there. You've always been there, and you always will. You're simply believing the mind that is telling you you're not. Oh no, that can't be it. It's got to be this. And it holds up this whole litany of special things, special effects that are supposed to happen. So, is the character real? That's the only question you have to answer. And I know you can answer that question. No, it's not. And I also know simultaneously that your mind then will be saying, yeah, but, and have a long litany of things. Don't give this to your mind. Don't listen to it. It is not your mind which becomes enlightened. It is enlightenment that sees through the illusion of the mind. Does that help you, Rob? You're not that character. The character you want to kill off doesn't exist. There's nothing to kill. You're not that. Right? That's all you have to know. And then just deal. If there's an upsurge of resistance and doubts that come to you, fine. I find that in people who are smart, or maybe and well educated and well read, they have more doubts than somebody who is not so well read. Right? There's the story of the it was the last. Yes, it was the sixth. I can't remember his name. Hu Xin or something like that. The last patriarch, Zen patriarch of China, was like a young teenager, illiterate. Was very poor. He would just he collected sticks or something and sold some stuff just to make money every day to feed him and his mother, who was sick. His father was dead. Totally illiterate, couldn't read. One day, he heard some monk chanting the Diamond Sutra and immediately became enlightened. Ended up leaving his mother with somebody else, went to the temple of the fifth patriarch, who immediately recognized what had happened, and he eventually became. It's a wonderful story. He eventually became the kind of the equivalent of the Dalai Lama at the time. Completely illiterate, right? So he didn't have a lot of conceptual stuff going on. He didn't have a lot of concepts that the mind was trying to resolve, because the mind is trying to take the phenomena, the wonder of non-dual inquiry, which is non-conceptual, and fit it into its conceptual models. It can't be done. The best you can do with conceptual models is use them to point to the area, to the place that is beyond concepts. It's purely experiential. And as that deepens, it begins to take over the mind, and the mind becomes quieter, and it becomes willing to be used as a tool rather than as a tyrant that needs to be satisfied, because it is insatiable. Thank you, Rob. Dave, given the dangerous state of the world, global warming, intense inequality, etc., what are your thoughts regarding weighing individual awakening with social movements for change? Well, the first thing I say is wake up first, really. They've actually detected this. I'm going to go into the realm of science now. A fellow named Rupert Sheldrake, who has formulated a theory he calls the morphic field, which is simply that every bit of progress that any individual makes it easier for the next person to, anything anybody learns or achieves makes it easier for the next person to learn or achieve. It's been tested out on and actually proven to be a real fact. He's got one idea. There's a lot of varying theories now about why that is and how it works and all of that. But it does point to something very, very significant. You waking up has an impact on the world far more powerful than any social movement. Now, once you do awaken, how you disport yourself in the world, whether you participate in movements, a social movement or something, will be very spontaneous, very individual, and will be very much in line with who you are. Right? It'll be a very natural unfolding of your sense of self, of the sense of the newly born sense of who you really are. But believe me, every insight you have that deepens your understanding of who you actually are affects the entire world far more powerfully than any kind of organization. I believe in organizations. The political candidate I highly support. I donate to his. I'm donating to his campaign. I may actually participate in some other way, right? But I know that ultimately, any movement, right, is going to be limited in what it can accomplish, simply because the real issue we're facing isn't global warming and the horrid distribution of wealth and war for profit and greed. Those are symptomatic of a deep ignorance of who we actually are. So anyone who wakes up to who they actually are is nipping these issues in the bud, and it's out of there that the actual solutions are going to come. I mean, the reality is every one of the problems that you mentioned, all of the problems the world's facing now, could be turned around in a heartbeat if there was a shift in the consciousness of humanity. because we have everything we need to deal with this, and we either are or we aren't. And what's going to determine whether we do or don't is completely on the amount of consciousness in the world in these days. So be that consciousness, and you will find ways in which you can bring a light and a wisdom, and most importantly, loving compassion to what can be incredibly divisive issues. It doesn't do any good to hate anybody about it. It doesn't do any good to make evil people, right? Evil people are simply unconscious. That's it. That's all there is to it, right? Nobody could be conscious and have more money than the pharaohs did while people are sleeping on the street. You could not possibly be conscious and allow that. You have to be asleep in order for that to go on. So what's the solution? Be conscious. Be conscious. Be conscious. Wake up. Make that your number one priority. The Bodhisattva vow folds into here beautifully. The Bodhisattva, while the Arhat seeks enlightenment for himself, the Bodhisattva seeks enlightenment for all of humanity. So seek your awakening for the benefit of all humanity. Then there's not even selfishness in seeking, and then go beyond the seeking to the finding, because even the seeking is being beheld and cognized by that which is being sought. And believe me, the effect that has, you may never know the extent of it. It reaches out to places you won't be able to see. It's not represented by how many people show up on a live stream or how many people you talk to during a day. That is not the measurement of it, because it's working on a level that is completely unseen to our senses. It's an energetic vibration that is rippling through the ocean of consciousness that is humanity. So thank you for that, Dave, and cherish that. Cherish that desire for us to wake up and become what humanity can be. Don't let that become anger, or worse, hatred towards any group of people, even the ones who appear to be so greedy that they want it all. Can't have any hatred towards them. See them for what they are. They are ignorant. They are unconscious. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Bring that spirit to it, and then wake up. William Callahan, no man ever steps in the same river twice. Yes, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. Yep, Heraclitus. Yes, yep. You can't do it. It's the flow. Everything is a flow. This is flowing right now. What you see is not a solid object. It is a constant flow of energy that just appears to be a form. There's nothing solid about it whatsoever. Coco, GP, how does one stay with trauma in the body? I've been working with attachment trauma. Now, no matter how much I try I react to the fear by going into my head. When I'm triggered, hard to rest in presence. Okay. Well, the very fact that you notice that you're going into your head means you are present. Okay? Yes, you're not feeling the rest of presence. I totally get that. But let's make sure we're really acknowledging what's actually going on here. So when there's some kind of traumatic thing happening in the body, there's an energy, and trauma is simply stuck energy, right? It's energy that hasn't had permission to discharge. And there's a lot of things that go into keeping that energy contained. The number one containment is our sense of identity, right? First off, see it as pure sensation. Don't give it a story. Don't even call it a trauma, right? Don't worry about what the event was in the past that caused it, right? Don't give any thought to that whatsoever. Stay completely with the sensation in the body as you're feeling it, and don't let anything else intrude on it. The mind, one of the ways the mind tries to suppress trauma or to get out of it is to start making up stories about it, even thinking about where it originated and how it happened. No story whatsoever. No, we need a completely open space for the trauma, that stuck energy, to become released from the body. And when it's being released, it can tell you the story of where it came from and why it was here and what happened to it, or not. Right? You don't care, right? You're just giving the most loving permission to stuck energy to finally be freed. Look at it like that, not as a problem you have to get rid of, right? Because now you're making more conflict, right? Now you're doing this inside. See it instead as some part of you that is really troubled, that is feeling stuck and wants to get out and be free. And so you're just providing a space in which that can happen, meaning you're just being present with the sensation. Believe me, the less story you have about the sensation, the easier it will be to be present with it, even when it's intense. Even when, because what you can feel is the intensity of it is that it wants the when that energy is trying to push itself out, and you've got the inner energy that is trying to keep it in, right? It what wants to have this wants to be triggered and trigger off thoughts and stories and actions and behaviors. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. You're putting yourself right in the middle of that, and it is admittedly a very uncomfortable place to be. Here's this reaction coming up that wants a particular course of action to follow. You're sitting here going, no, I don't want this course of action to follow anymore. I want to be free of this unconscious pattern. The very fact that you're there is all, you're already conscious. You're present, right? You're not present or go unconscious when you go along with the reactive pattern. And remember, the reactive pattern is trying to do nothing but suppress this trauma. So if you're just there and you're just physically feeling the sensations in your body with absolutely no story, and I mean no story, right? I'm triggered. Let's see. When I'm triggered, it's hard to rest in presence. That's a story. That's a thought. It's not true. You're already present with it, right? You're already feeling it. So it doesn't mean, right, that it's hard. That is just a belief. That's part of the story. So don't believe it. It's not hard. It's already there, right? And remember who you are. Pure awareness it's not hard for it to be aware. And the very fact that all of this has come up means it's already been allowed. It's already in awareness, right? Which means the entire picture, the reaction, the feeling triggered, the energy that's coming up, the trauma, it's all appearing to who? To you, right? You are that awareness. You've already let it in. Right. And now, so take an even bigger step back to see that the one that's trying to get rid of it, the one that feels that it's hard to rest in presence, the one that wants to go in its head, into the head, is being witnessed, isn't it? I know it is because you told me about it, right? Which means it's something you actually perceived. So where were you when you perceived it? Really, this is subtle, but it's really important. Where were you standing when you perceived it? Something can only be perceived from the outside. So something was very present, right? That something is the real you, the absolute consciousness, the absolute awareness that you always are. Right? And is that which is perceiving all of this at all disturbed by any of it? The mind will say, yeah, well, we're real disturbed. But the mind is focused on all this sensation and energy, all this stuff going on. But take a step back behind the lens. You, the one witnessing all of this stuff going on, is that disturbed? Or is it more like the sky and there just happens to be a big storm going on? Is the sky affected? And when the storm passes, is there any trace left of it in the sky? How does one stay with trauma in the body? Right. Be the self. Be that pure awareness that is aware of the trauma in the body, right? That can stay with it because it is open, empty like space. So there's nothing to disturb it, and nothing leaves a trace on it. So when you say, I have been working with attachment trauma, take the label off of that. I'm not exactly sure what the attachment trauma you're working on is, but just take the label off of it. Don't turn this into the mind's quest to solve a problem, but instead, just what's actually here in your body. You may get a sensation in the body, and the mind will start going, oh, this is an attachment trauma, and build a whole narrative around that. Approach it as if you have no idea what it is, right? That something has just arisen. There's a feeling in the system. It's just arisen. And the only reason it can arise is because your awareness, right? Everything that arises can only arise to awareness. So separate from awareness, it has no existence whatsoever. It only appears. So be in the place of awareness, which does not struggle to stay anywhere because it's everywhere, right? And then just watch as the various energies move and flow through the system without trying to change it, without trying to interfere it, without trying to overcome it, without even trying to release a trauma. No narrative whatsoever. Just a pure, empty witnessing of this flow of energy. And see if wisdom doesn't begin to emerge in just the right way for this, just the right adjustment for the energy to become freed. Because that's what it's all about. But the most important thing for you to become free is to be in the position of the awakened witness. Because the awakened witness is not disturbed at all. It's full of compassion, full of desire to free all of the turmoil and the conflict. So it's full of compassion for it, but it is not the least bit affected by it. Does that help, Coco? That's a really wonderful question, and I think everybody can learn from that one. Thank you. Jess says, Namaste from Monterey, California. Oh, I love Monterey. Christian Malanovic gives me 5 stars. Thank you. Cheers from Croatia. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Carrie Brogan, time is 8:11 NSW, Sydney time. So at the 1 o'clock when I start, it's 8 o'clock in the morning there for you? Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Ivan, hello from Bulgaria. 11 p.m. there. Hello, sir. Hello, hello, hello. Beautiful day in Arizona from Danica. Hello, Danica. That's where my son lives, is Arizona. My other son, my second son. Let's see where Carrie. I had to euthanize my cat yesterday. Oh, I'm so sorry. Painful. Is there a way to know if he's okay or if there's anything I can do for him? I woke up last night hearing a sound that I thought was him. the veil between this life and the next is way thinner than we realize. It is actually quite flimsy. And it oftentimes things, actually, I've had some experiences with little kids talking about stuff. It was clearly other lives and other places. I mean, it was just obvious. It had nothing to do with here. They haven't built up the walls of the mind yet to the point where they have said, oh, that's not possible, or they have an experience and they just doubt their own experience, what they have. I've doing this now for so long, I don't doubt anything. anything can happen. Animals have ways of communicating, and just because it's not in the body anymore, remember, the consciousness of the animal and the consciousness of you are the same consciousness. Take you and as this conscious entity and put you in a cat body, right? So you have cat thoughts, whatever they might be, cat interests, cat instincts, right? Cat abilities, cat muscles, the whole thing. And you would think you were a cat, right? There wouldn't be thought on the same level of it, but your entire experience of the world would be as a cat. Yet it's the same consciousness, right? This is the wonder, the miracle, the great blessing of being born a human, because the human is what is capable of becoming self-aware. That's actually the gift of the human. It's got nothing to do with the physical body. The body is simply the vehicle through which consciousness can manifest its own self-awareness to the highest degree we know. It's probably something beyond that, probably something beyond the humans, but we can do it more than cats, which can do it more than bugs, right? But don't underestimate any of it. Even on the most practical level, the energy of that cat is still there. Everyone we ever have a relationship with, be it an animal or another human being, or even some objects that we really love, right, that have a lot of meaning for us, they're part of an energetic system within our within our lives. And so the signature, the vibration of everyone in that is still there long after the body has dissolved. Don't think of a person in terms of their body. Think of the body as simply this form that has appeared, but the actual identity of that form is the one being, right? That you that you, Carrie, or me, GP, are simply an appearance on this indivisible field of consciousness in which we are actually the same being, different faces on the same soul. So what you can do for him is exactly what you could do for the rest of the world, and that is wake up to your true nature. The more you wake up, the more it's possible for him to wake up. Perhaps this time around he'll get a human body, and it may be even a female human body, to have his opportunity. And of course you can hear him, right? His energy is still there, right? He hasn't gone anywhere. The body has simply dissolved, but that energetic signature is still very much present. So like I say, for everyone, how do you help the world? How do you help your neighbors? How do you help whatever is there for you in the moment, you do. Other than that, dedicate your life to full awakening, to knowing who you really are. And that'll do it. That is the greatest gift you can possibly give to anyone. I realized when my children were young, and that the best gift I could give to them was to be awake and happy. That was the very best gift I could give to them, right? For them to have that example in their life. And so they added an additional motivation for me to be on this path. So I hope that helps you, Carrie. I know what it feels like. I've had several animals that I've been extremely close to, and it's time for them to go. And I knew it was time to go, and they knew it was time to go. And I even asked them, "Is it? I mean, you want to hang out, or you know?" And the answer just came very clear. There's just this wave communication that takes place, right? That you just know. You just know. So, 8:12 a.m. in Melbourne time. Okay. Wow, that's better than I thought. I mean, yeah, it's better than I thought. Okay. Danica, Carrie, oh, I know how you're feeling. Lost my cat a year and a half ago. He's always found in my memories, dreams, and meditation. So, yep, he's still around. That vibration is real, folks. It's not imaginary. Just love him. Yeah, just love him. Thank you, Danica. Chris, thanks for that, GP. It's when I am in the company of many people, I find myself trying to figure out that the one consciousness is doing all of this at once. Should I abandon this thought? I've been contemplating this for weeks. Has it? Yeah, weeks is enough. If you haven't, all of these things can be interesting, even can be useful. But when it becomes kind of an obsessive thing, step away. That's the mind just kind of being your leg, and you really don't want that. Focus your attention on what you do know. Know consciousness as yourself, and this question will answer itself. I guarantee it. Sunny Carlo. So to deny the fact we have a physical body and ignore its many needs? Heavens no. To be clear, I have never ever said that. I take very good care of this body. I was at the gym this morning. I eat very well. So no, there's a school of thought in some traditions that I know of. Don't do anything body. Don't go to doctors. Don't do anything whatsoever in the body. Leave it complete. I don't see it. I think we need to just give it what it needs and then forget about it. When you know yourself as consciousness, you'll find that the body is, in fact, simply a vibration of consciousness. It isn't a physical body at all. We believe it to be a physical body. We've given it objective existence. In fact, it is made of consciousness. Everything is made of consciousness. That is the actual substance of the universe, not matter. So how we view the body will determine a lot about its health and its looks, everything about it. But I don't tell anybody to, you can drink a case of wine and not get a hangover. I don't tell anybody to just eat Krispy Kreme donuts and don't worry about nutrition. That would be irresponsible and stupid, right? We take care of things, but as consciousness grows, our view of the universe will shift dramatically, and the body will not mean to you what it used to mean to you. Doesn't mean you ever stop not taking care of it. It has a particular vibrational function on this level, and at this level, its vibrational function has certain requirements, right? So you don't feed it Krispy Kreme donuts. You feed it, kale and spinach and cucumbers and organic and unprocessed food. It's just the smart thing. You don't puff on smoke, right? I mean, these are the kind of things that this is the requirements at this at this level. So take care of that, and then don't worry about it. Keep your attention. Non-dual inquiry is not attempting to try to make a religion, right? A bunch of rules that you should follow. This is how you should treat your body. This is what you should do with your spouse. You should go to church 3 days a week or no days a week or whatever it is. There's no rules here. It's the only thing non-duality is concerned about is waking up to who you really are. With that awakening, everything else takes care of itself. Everything else comes into perspective because now you're seeing it through real eyes. You're not seeing it through the eyes of a self that doesn't really exist. You're not seeing it through a mental construct. You're actually seeing life as it is, which means you become perfectly harmonized with it. And then you know exactly how to treat everything just as it needs to be treated. Take care of everything just as it needs to be taken care of, right? Enlightenment doesn't mean the wind stops blowing or rain stops coming. It doesn't mean the body doesn't get hungry, right? You become insanely wise, right? Noticing even the tiniest subtle things instead of and part of that wisdom is you just don't assume you know what the body needs. Oh, it should be this, this, and this. You listen to it. Right? You listen to the natural intelligence of life. But again, I emphasize, make awakening to your true nature your number one priority. Right? In the meantime, do the best you can with everything you got. Take care of it as best you can. And yet there's some self-reliance required on that because you can't swing a cat without having somebody who's got the latest nutrition. It's keto, and then it's paleo diet, or the Miami diet, or oh no, we need these every day. I mean, there's just so much of a glut of information that moderation. That goes all the way back to to Greek philosophy. Everything in moderation. I think that might even been Heraclitus again who said that. Everything in moderation, and you won't go too far off. Avoid processed foods and stuff that has all the nutrients sucked out of it, and then forget about it. Make your number one ambition in life to wake up, and the rest will take care of itself. So I hope I covered that. I never want anybody to say that I to ignore the body. I don't. I don't. So I still look pretty good for 67 years old. And I hope I get another 30 years out of this body before I have to trade it in. So, Stephen Elaine. So, guys, it appears there's an increasing prevalence of people having an awakening, but just as the ego may resist the suggestion, it's an illusion. Do you think there's also more collective unconscious, or more universal resistance to the non-dual message that you and other teachers propose? Many thanks. The collective unconscious is interesting because it's been characterized as being kind of this, seen really more from a non-dual perspective of a field of consciousness where the forms are bubbling up from. That was a phrase that was actually created by Carl Jung, and that's not at all what he meant. He didn't see like there was just this one conscious. What he was referring to was that every individual consciousness, and that is how he saw it, every individual consciousness is pretty much made of the same stuff. So there's a collective there. Similar images, similar messages, which is why he would say, talk about various kinds of mythologies. And Joseph Campbell was a fan of his. I guess they met at one time as well. That the very fact that certain mythological themes popped up all over the place from completely disconnected cultures pointed towards a collective unit, a similarity between us, something very primal and essential to all of us that is common. And it shows up as, the hero's journey, of course, being the most dramatic one, which appears in absolutely every other culture, every culture on the planet, as does things like the virgin births, or special births, stories of the flood, creation stories, the origin of the coconut or the origin of corn, all over the place. Incredible similarities, and that's actually the origin of corn, and for the Plains Indians of the North, and the origin of the coconut in the Polynesian islands are almost the same story. One about coconuts, one about corn. So it's pointing at these really dramatic similarities. There's a unity on this. Matter of fact, it's far larger than and deeper than that which divides us. The similarities between us, when we get right down to it, our aspirations are all the same. We want to know who we are. We want to feel safe and happy. I mean, it's really very, very simple. As I mentioned earlier, this idea of a morphic field, I do believe. Look, when I had that first dramatic awakening at 19 years old, there was actually a one prior to that at 17 years old, but that didn't have the transformational impact on the rest of my life. My life had to actually decay first to the point where I was willing at that point to change. So 2 years later, it came and just wiped everything away and changed every aspect of my everyday life. At that time, there was a Zen center in Los Angeles and one in New York, and that was all there was of any kind of non-dual teaching. There are some people who knew about it for sure. I mean, Ram Dass and like that back in the 60s. Stephen Walensky, who became a student of Nisargadatta. It was known, right? Certainly not to a kid in the Midwest, right? The term awakening, enlightenment, I'd never heard that term. I had no idea what Buddhism was. I had no idea the term non-duality, let alone the term Advaita, right? I mean, really, when you look back on it in the 60s and the 70s, there was almost nothing. There was a few things here and there. And then all of a sudden, it started to grow and a momentum happened. And it started to explode in the late, well, it started really to congeal in the late 70s. And self-help started to emerge, right? Course in Miracles appeared in 1976. And really it was the 80s where this entire thing began to explode. And all of a sudden, all sorts of information from all over the place was making it in to my little world and to the Western world at large. Obviously, with the advent of the internet, and then ultimately the search engines, which then got dominated by Google, there is simply a glut of information now about it. And so there's a lot of people who are having, excuse me, a lot of people who are having genuine awakening experiences. There's a lot of other people that aren't. They've read a lot or they've seen a lot of videos, and they've had some aha moments and are just misinterpreting it as that. So there is a clear expanding of consciousness. I mean, Jesus made reference to it, as a matter of fact. He referred to the kingdom of heaven as 3 measures of yeast that a woman hid in the loaf of bread that would leaven the whole. It would be hidden there until the entire loaf had been leavened. And that's exactly what he was referring to 22,000 years ago, just planting this seed in human consciousness. And if we see human consciousness really as just the field of consciousness right now manifesting as humanity, right? And humanity being individual humans, you kind of get the picture that every one of these things has been a seed dropped into consciousness, going all the way back to Buddha, Krishna, and beyond to the Vedas. There's been this leavening that is now unfolding as more and more, what appears on the surface as more and more individuals having an awakening experience. But of course, that awakening is also inciting the ego. Just as if you've ever had an awakening, which I know you have had the experiences of awakening, where suddenly there was an unsought clarity. It's a nice way to put it, right? And there could be a flood of doubts coming, right? Resistance, even a restlessness, right? I'm hungry, or I want to read a magazine. I mean, all sorts of different ways. So there is this opposing power. And it's not an entity, right? It's habits, right? That's all it is. And it is very, very rare that the awakening is so powerful that it completely expunges all of those habits. Almost never happens. Rare, very rare. Happened to Eckhart Tolle, but that was after like 10 years of utter horrific suffering. Ramana Maharshi, it did. Stephen Jourdain, there was another woman, Suzanne Siegel. I know of very few cases in history. Actually, Suzanne, she went through a period of time of enormous fear before it completed itself. Very few times in history where that is the case. Mostly it's like you and I have experienced. Boom, something's up there, and then there's resistance, and then we deepen it, we work through it, we come to see ourselves more deeply, and the resistance then eventually lessens. It yields to clarity. And so, but the ego does not want to be told it's an illusion. It doesn't want, when I say here, it doesn't exist, right? The ego does not like that, right? Now, that's the whole point, though. That's the whole illusion of it. It's not like there's a thing, an ego, that doesn't like it. It's non-sentient. There's nothing there. It's a non-entity. It is a function. It is simply a pattern of thought that has gained momentum in a particular form. And so you come along and you see that this isn't true. That momentum is still there, and it's going to feel like it's fighting back against it. It isn't. It's just it's triggered the defensive mechanism, and it's defending itself. But there's no it there. Okay, to make it an it or a character or something that has to be killed or destroyed or done away with gives it an existence it doesn't actually have. It is like a robot. Robots are non-sentient, but they act out the part. So if you're fighting with a robot, it may feel very, very real, but there's actually nobody there fighting with you. Right? So this is how you see through it. This is how you see that it is an illusion, but the illusion isn't the resistance itself, the functioning of the resistance. The illusion is thinking that that's some kind of an entity. And of course, the ultimate of the illusion is that this entity is me, that I'm resisting. I'm resisting my truth. No, you're not. Is that clear for you, Dave and Elaine? I covered a lot of territory, and that was a big question. Sunny says, even when we realize truth, our bodies still bleed and get thirsty. Absolutely. They will also die. They will get very hungry, right? They'll get desirous of companionship, a very intimate level. Yeah. Because that's what they do. That's the point of it. So there's nothing about realizing the truth that changes all that. It brings you into harmony with it. You totally accept it and embrace it. Oh, so it ceases to become a problem. It ceases to become suffering. It ceases to be anything other than what it actually is. That's the real realization of truth. It's not some specialized power you get, the city powers where you can now control the weather, right? Or manifest, anything you want. That happens occasionally, but that's not what this is all about. Right? It still rains. The body gets hungry. If a car hits you, you die. Right? If it hits you hard enough, the body dies, but you don't. Awakening, the realization of the truth is to realize that the body is an appearance in consciousness, and that you are consciousness. And so the destiny or character or stuff of the body isn't influencing you. You're the sky, and the clouds pass across the sky, but they leave no trace. You're the consciousness, and a body comes, changes, goes through all sorts of stuff, and dissipates, but it leaves no trace on you. The identification with the body, like I am my body, is the problem, and the realization of truth is I'm not my body. That means the body can just continue to do whatever it needs to do. It will function the way the bodies function. And some function better than others. Fine. You don't, it's not a problem for you anymore. As Nisargadatta put it, I leave my human life to fulfill its destiny. I remain as I am. So there's no special dispensation, no special power, no special anything that comes with truth necessarily. I mean, sometimes some people do. Some, those city powers, and if they're needed, they will show up, right? But they're not the end result. For the most people, it's just the normal human being, right? That's the ultimate attainment, the normal human being. Just this, as it is, you, as you are, but liberated from everything you thought you were, you as you really are, the consciousness that is aware of all of this. And that remains undisturbed no matter what goes on in the objective world. Dave Wiggins, good afternoon from Massachusetts. Good. Hey, Dale. Good to see you. Let's see. Dave Rose. Yes, thanks, GP. How did Gandhi put it? You must be the peace that you wish to see in the world. Thanks. Yes. Yeah, he got it totally. Yeah, he really lived it. By his own admission, he wasn't fully enlightened, although he was a seeker of it. But his wisdom was unquestionable, just unquestionable. The way he just saw the exactly right way to do things. He realized that in order to experience peace, you have to be the peace. There's a song they sing in Unity churches every week. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. You just become that. Mike Picour says, nice video. Oh, thank you. I'm not sure what video you're referring to. Dale Wiggins, the message is so simple. This is why I fail to come up with questions each week. Simple but not easy. Thank you, GP. Is it hard to be who you actually are? It's certainly hard for the mind, because the last thing it wants to accept is that you already are what you're seeking, because the mind wants to seek, gives it something to do, right? It's just like this restless servant won't leave you alone. Give me something to do. Give me something to do. It's not true. Don't tell yourself it's not easy, because you'll basically believe that into existence. It's a very simple question. Is it hard to be what you already are? So you're simply removing attention and belief in all the thoughts that say that you're not. It's that simple. And that's not hard. Don't let anybody tell you that it's hard. And I'm glad it's harder to come up with questions each week. That means it's sinking in more deeply. I imagine what your experience is, the question comes up and immediately there's a sense of the answer. Either the answer comes, maybe even in words, or it's just this a feeling, or maybe there's even the feeling like it's not quite the right question. Something is leading you deeper and deeper and deeper. It's great. Rosario, GP, Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." Does that mean that we are the light with which we see the trees, the flowers, and the rest of the forms? Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. There's the consciousness, the metaphor for consciousness from forever has been light. Let there be light, right? Right at the beginning. It's Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the earth. God said, let there be light, and there was light. Light is a beautiful metaphor for consciousness, because it is in the light of consciousness everything is seen. Right? Without consciousness, there's no light. There's physical light. Who cares? Right? Consciousness is what sees, period. And so you are the light in which everything is seen. He also meant it from the point of view that your awakening is the lighting of the entire world. It is a light. He said, don't take your light and hide it under a basket, but let it shine. Let your insights, let what you have seen, what you have genuinely seen, shine. Don't try to hide it. Don't be obscure about it. You can't really hide it anyway. But everything is seen in the light of consciousness. If you see that, you'll begin to realize that everything is in consciousness and there's nothing outside of it. Thank you, Rosario. How are we doing here? Coco says, thank GB. Very encouraging and helpful. Good. Good. I think you find it easier. I think you will find it to be easier to deal with the stuff, the material, the unprocessed stuff that comes up for all of us when there's no story attached to it. And you let that energy just kind of define itself to you. And you just provide this wonderful, warm, loving space in which anything is allowed. And that's the environment in which healing takes place. That's the best environment for it. First person hood. Thoughts on Douglas Harding? I love Douglas Harding. Wonderful guy. Love listening to him talk. He's so clear and articulate. He's got that big, wonderful British voice. Very sophisticated British voice sounding fellow. It's really great. Just, yeah, I could listen to him all day. The Headless Way is absolutely wonderful. Richard, what's Richard, the guy who's kind of taken it over for him? I recommend the book, The Headless Way, and various kinds of talks you can hear now then, because Douglas Harding passed away a while ago. It's a very marvelous process for bringing ourselves to that to seeing ourselves as pure consciousness by kind of going to one of the most obvious pointers that there is. You've probably even heard me do a brief exercise with people that is really a variation on that. When I ask the question, what do you look like from a distance of 0? Or I have you imagine, I ask people to picture yourself, put a picture in your mind of yourself, and everybody will form a picture of themselves, like you're looking at yourself, right? Maybe from 5 feet away, or what you looked on a portrait or a YouTube or a video or something like that, and then point out that you've never actually seen that. So this image you hold of yourself is not something you've actually ever seen. That's really a variation on the headless way. The fact, from your direct experience, you don't have a head. It's brilliant, right? So what is your actual experience? Well, your actual experience is simply consciousness filled with a universe. That's your actual experience. And that's what happened to him. He saw it. It just flowed through him dramatically and unfolded over time into the headless way. But from your perspective, you don't have a head. It's very beautiful. Yeah, if you're so inclined to look into it. So if that has benefited you, I hope I certainly see it as a very powerful, legitimate, and quite amusing and humorous approach to a non-dual inquiry. So Robert Hill says, hi G, if I want to stop a bad habit, who is the I that wants to stop it? And why is it so hard? If there really is no I, might as well observe and not try to change yourself. Smoking sucks. Yes. Yeah, it's very true. I don't ever want to condemn anybody for any bad habit, right? But at the same time, it's not like I can say, well, there is no I, so carry on, right? it does afford us an opportunity to go deeply into the sense of identity that gets addicted. And the sense of identity is addictive. I mean, it doesn't matter. It may be to something. Everybody's got them. It could be smoking, it could be drinking, it could be some harder drugs, it could be even innocuous drugs, something like cannabis or any of the plant medicines. People can get very attached to that. It can be shopping, it can be sex, it can be certain kinds of relationships, it can be abusive relationships, it can be charging, it can be watching TV, it can be surfing the internet, or getting into arguments on Facebook. There's just an innumerable number of ways in which the sense of identity gets attached to things. What is it that gets the sense of identity attached to something? Well, the sense of identity, the egoic mind, is unstable by nature. And therefore, it is always trying to find something that it can hold on to make it feel as if it is something, to enhance it, to make it try to feel safe and secure, which is something that the false sense of self cannot do. It cannot feel safe and secure because it is unstable by nature. It is just a thought, and thoughts are shifting, changing constantly, and your experience is changing constantly. And so it is forever trying to get from the outside world some kind of confirmation as to who it is. And because it doesn't have anything of substance, right? It has to get it from the outside world. If it doesn't get it, it freaks out. That's why solitary confinement is the most brutal punishment they can dole out at a prison, because it's crazy making, because you have nothing to define yourself against. And so these kinds of habits become ways of being, and the more feedback they give you to tell you something about yourself, the more they the stronger they become. So all of that said, that I is not actually who you are. That's not you, right? So first, take a nice big step back and notice that I that is addicted to smoking or drinking or shopping or whatever it is, whatever it's attached to, just notice the whole dynamic of it. There's a reaching for something. There's a getting of that something. There's kind of a reward feedback loop to it. But it's not really satisfying. At least it's only temporary, and then have to reach out for it again, which is the nature of all human desires. You have to reach out for it again and again. But now notice that all of that is being watched from another place that isn't affected by all of that. That doesn't really have a preference for it. It isn't concerned one way or another. It's not judgmental. It is not critical. It is compassionate, but it is not critical or judgmental. It's not trying to fix or change. It's just the seeing. Now, the more we see from this place, the more that person who is suffering from addictions becomes nothing but repetitive patterns of thought. The more that is seen as repetitive patterns of thought, and this urge to try to define oneself as also a pattern of thought, the less powerful it becomes. Until finally you can see that kind of addiction, like smoking, becomes purely a sensation in the body. And then little by little, you can begin to dispose of all the story about that and the reactive pattern. It's a strong reactive pattern, I agree. And even with a non-dual inquiry, you may need some help, right? You may need some professional to help to to be free of it. And there's a lot of it. And there's some very good programs for smoking and drinking and others that that can give you a practical assistance with doing that. So I'm going to address. So I don't want to say ignore that. This is all you have to do. I don't know. I can't say. But what I am going to say is that anything you can do on a practical level to help ease that, and changes of behaviors and things like that is great. But ultimately, it'll come back to who you are when you are not those patterns of thought and action. When you are not that person and you're really clear as to who you are, and you can take in the entire scene without reacting, without taking sides, without having a preference, without criticizing, but without encouraging, right? Right? Just being consciously aware that every action has its consequences in this world, and that there's a growing desire for freedom, right? And that desire for freedom is total, and that's what you nurture, because that will eventually get strong enough that it will subordinate the other desires. And that's what an addiction is. It's a desire. The desire for freedom becomes dominant. And the more dominant that becomes, the less dominant all of these lesser desires become. And space opens up, and the capacity to truly go free from them. Not just to become a recovering alcoholic, but to not be an alcoholic. Not to be a recovering smoker, but to simply not be it. It's not even in the field of awareness anymore. It's simply not you. And so it's completely out of the picture. So to let all desires coalesce into the desire for freedom, that's what Ramana Maharshi said: let all desires become the desire for freedom. And that one desire for freedom becoming the focus of attention will subordinate and diminish all lesser desires until that desire itself is the only one left. And he said, and it was like, he made the analogy that it was like the stick that you stir the fire with. And when the fire got to a certain point when it didn't need any more stirring, you threw that stick in there as well. So even the desire for freedom gets thrown away, because you don't need a desire for something you already have. Right? And that's the ultimate realization that begins to dawn. You are not the addictive person. That is not who you are. It is not you at all. It is an image in your mind. And you can withdraw completely from it and cease identifying with it. And it will eventually lose its power. Just don't think of yourself as someone with an addiction trying to get over it. See that the desire to get over that is actually the desire for total freedom from mortality. Right? So, and it's not, so don't even let that be a temporary sense of identity that you're trying to overcome. It's not you, right? It's an active pattern in the nervous system, but it is not you. You are not that. You are the freedom that you're seeking. You are already the clear, infinite sky through which this particular cloud happens to be passing. But it leaves no trace on you. It leaves no mark. It leaves no residue. So, hope you find that encouraging. Bo, hi Bo. Dear G, life is happening. Ain't it though? There's beauty everywhere. Desires arise, and somehow I don't feel guilty because of it. It is fulfilling of these desires delaying or even preventing our waking up? That's a very, very good question, Bo. First up, you should never feel guilty about a desire arising. All guilt arises from the sense of a separate self. It was imposed on us by religious systems and the like. It's all nonsense, right? So for desire to be there is totally natural. And as I point out often, without desire, life stops very quickly, right? We're all sitting around here because our parents had desire, right? We had the desire to eat. We had the desire to get up in the morning and put on our clothes and brush our teeth. And we had the desire to come and sit here, and so did I, right? All of that is desire, right? What we want is a transformation of desire so that we see desire not through the eyes of lack, I got something and I want it, but through the eyes of the infinite abundance and infinite potential, that a desire is the birth of something. Right? It is not trying to get something. It is the birth of something you actually already have. You already are. So feeling guilty about that is absurd. Feeling guilty, of course, that is what the Western religions did. This whole doctrine of original sin and the fall from grace, that your nature is sinful, therefore every desire you have, every thought, everything you have is sinful, right? It was also the fall of nature. So nature was sinful. This planet is to be subordinated, not relished in. And of course, that became the role of women being lessened, because women are too now. Women are life, the source of life, and the nourishers of life. That their very body is the producers, the producers of life. So it's inevitable that a religious view like that would reduce women to second-class citizens. It's all nonsense, right? But this nonsense happened to have been ingrained in pretty much every one of us sitting here, unless we have some people from India or Asia, which had a very different kind of. Imagine growing up in a culture where they'd never heard of the fall. The what? So we have any Asians or Indians or Native Americans or any Aboriginal people here? Completely different. It's not in your nervous system, but the rest of us, it is. It was installed in there pretty intensely, right? With the idea of sin and hell. I mean, it's a huge reinforcement of that. So now, there's no guilt about it. No guilt about fulfilling the desires. Are the desires delaying or even preventing our waking up? The answer is only if you give preference to fulfilling desires over waking up. I mean, waking up is a desire, right? We can't get away from it. Desire to wake up is our desire for the ultimate freedom. So you can't get away from it. But here's the deal. Are you investing the kind of focused energy into self-inquiry, or is that kind of a luxury you do on the side because these other desires get more of your attention, right? Just kind of rate them. There's no guilt in any of them. You can fulfill any desire you like. There's no rules here, right? Right? So it's just a matter, okay, what do I value the most? What's my priority? And you can look, and desires have different levels of fulfillment, right? Some will lead to immortality, other lead to a momentary fun thing. Some lead to a more progressive life. So you can just look at them. Some are just downright trivial. Like an addiction is a desire that the only thing it does is fulfill itself, right? So it doesn't actually take you to another place. It is completely self-contained. So that's why it's a lower form of desire. There's other desires that, it improve my life, have more skills, a desire to be more compassionate, and I cultivate different characteristics. The whole progressive path of spirituality is that kind of a desire. So it only prevents their waking up if it's getting the dominant part of your attention. If waking up is important to you, right, it will become a desire that will be more attractive to you than other things. That doesn't mean the other things aren't okay. There's lots of things I love to do, and I do them, right? But I would never do them in place of this, right? I'd never let them interfere in my natural inquiry and developing of this, and my desire to share it with others. So it's just kind of setting the scale and actually measuring it. If you find yourself getting really involved in just really pleasurable things, going, is this really getting me where I want to go? But you know what? You're going to kind of feel it, right? If you really are serious about waking up, you'll feel it. You'll feel that sense of something's not quite right. I need something more substantial, right? Every desire fulfilled is great. Some feel like you've just had a snack. Some feel like you've really had a good meal, right? So I hope that answers it for you. So, I mean, ultimately, nothing prevents our waking up. Why? Because you're already awake, right? Now, step back a second. You are aware of the desire coming up. You're aware of the fact that at one time you felt guilty. You don't feel guilty. You're aware of the fulfilling of the desires. You're also aware of this question: is it about waking up? Your waking up is obviously important to you. Notice, isn't this entire thing appearing to you in front of this very subtle background of consciousness that's aware of every single thing you've said and pointed out, every image, every function? Isn't that what we want to wake up to? But isn't that what's actually witnessing everything you're saying? Look now. Look right now. That which is that wrote the question to me, that which is listening to the answer to me, didn't it witness the entire thing? This is what waking up means. It means realizing you've always been awake. Consciousness has always been there. None of this could ever even arise for you if consciousness wasn't there first. So awakening is the realization of that. that it's been here the entire time. Matter of fact, if it wasn't here, none of this would be happening at all. That recognizes there's a beauty there. Now there's just this feeling that you're still someone who doesn't feel guilty, someone who is fulfilling their desires, and someone who's wondering if it's getting in the way of awakening. That one is actually appearing in front of a deeper self, isn't it? Isn't that self-evident? Well, which one are you? Are you the one that is making these choices? Or are you the one that's aware of all of that going on? Don't worry about making the choices. Only worry about becoming consistently, right, I'm the consciousness to which this entire thing is appearing. Oh, I'm already that. You following that, Bo? That takes you beyond the entire thing, and you see that question isn't even necessary, right? It's just a momentary thing that's coming that has a certain sense of identity about it. But since that's not you, you don't have to concern yourself with it. Who are you? Right, and that's a question you can answer now. You don't have to wait till some future awakening date. Right? Put it on my calendar. I'm waking up when? How about now? Because when you wake up, it's going to be now. PD vids. Hey, PD dids. Where's the I am located? Nowhere. No, don't take my word for it. Look right now. Everybody, look right now. The sense of being, right? We all have an intuitive, unmistakable sense of being, right? That's the I am, right? It's not somebody else's being, it's your being. There's an I am, there's a sense of it. Now look at that. Without wrapping a form around it, without giving it any kind of identity, don't give it a past or future, because it's right now. Right? Where is it? Does it have a boundary? Is there like some place in space where it isn't? Or is it what's actually beholding space? Is space in it? Without the I am, without you being, could anything possibly exist? So where is it located? Here. Now, which is all there is. The center is nowhere. No, the center is everywhere. The circumference is nowhere. That's how Black Elk put it. Can you see it? Just look for yourself. Right? Don't take my answer as a thought. Look, where is it located? Find that I am, and then look where is it located? My God, it's everywhere. It's nowhere. It's right here. It's me. Everybody get that? If you get that, won't need me anymore. Come and hang out though. I'll still be here. Dave and Elaine say, thanks for your answer. And why is it that the loving energy of consciousness would allow me to feel depressed? Does everything happen for a reason? Do we have free will? What I would encourage you to do is rather, and I don't want to dismiss this, right? But rather than asking why would consciousness allow this to happen or cause this to happen, you are consciousness, right? So let's take it from the place of being consciousness, having an experience, right? Now, as consciousness, right, you know what love is. You've felt love. That's how you could refer to that, the loving energy of consciousness. So you're very familiar with this. And this other experience of depression, right, it feels out of sync with it. Something's wrong. You can tell something's wrong, right? Good. So now something is clearly discerning that this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This isn't right, right? And I'll get your other question about happening for reason and free will in a second. Right? I want you to instead of that question, let's actually explore consciousness and this depression. Let's go directly to it, right? Because I can't answer why would consciousness allow it if we don't know what consciousness is. And we can't really understand depression unless we know what it is, right? We can't, what is this here for? Can't even answer, does it happen for a reason, until we know what it is. So let's not just assume. Everybody says, oh, depression, that's, and they kind of categorize it. The mind says that's what it is and never looks any further. Let's look further, right? Now depression is obviously secondary, because if there was no consciousness, there'd be no depression, right? There's got to be something there perceiving it in order for this to have any existence whatsoever. Without this, this is a moot point, right? You wouldn't be here. There'd be no PD vids, right? Vids, right? So let's start with the primary thing, which is there's a consciousness. Right? So when we talk about the loving energy of consciousness, we're not talking about something abstract. We're talking about you. Right? You are conscious of this depression, right? So you are that consciousness. Now feel that for a second, right? So let's not make it abstract like it's a God somewhere that's made you and stuck you with, for some reason, with this sense of depression. You are the consciousness that is aware of this, right? So now let's drop the name depression for a minute, because that's got all sorts of associations and stuff about it. And instead, just sink in. First off, is it there all the time? I suspect it's not. There may be kind of a dark cloud there. It's all there all the time. But an intense depression is not there all the time. Okay, which means that it does come and go. It's not a permanent thing, although it may feel that way. And I ask that question because sometimes the depression does come and go, but the fear of it coming again is what actually makes the kind of the dark cloud, and not the depression itself. Again, this is the only way you can discern that, is by be willing to actually go into it, look at it carefully, to really look at the experience you're having. What does it feel like? There's an energetic feeling of depression. Usually energy is drained, thoughts are not inspired. It's hard to think a positive thought about yourself, right? Whatever those particular, maybe even some feelings in the body, right? But general malaise, right? A sense of powerlessness and futility, right? These are all can be aspects of it. Okay. So now we're just staying with those feelings. And now, are those feelings there all the time? I know the mind is afraid they're going to be there, is anticipating them being there, and therefore is on alert. So even if they're not there, there's a reduction in the quality of life, right? Because there's this anticipation of this happening, right? But what if we just can be with it, right? And we really can be with it, so that even the anticipation of it happening is no longer a threat. We're just going to be with whatever it is. And those characteristics, if we were working one-on-one, we could go through each of those characteristics and just kind of be with them. And what I find is the more we are with what is being felt and less in our thoughts about it. And certainly one of the key things in something like this is our desire to get rid of it, which sets up an internal conflict that really sucks a lot of energy out of it. So let go of the desire to get rid of the depression, and let's replace that with a real curiosity as to what is actually happening, right? And now remember, you're in the position of consciousness. And consciousness is there all the time, right? Whether the experience of depression is there or it's gone for a moment, maybe a short moment, maybe a long moment. The intervening fear, I hope it doesn't come back, right? That's all happening undeniably. But what about the consciousness that is witnessing that? That's not coming and going, is it? That's very stable, right? Now, is that consciousness depressed? Or is it simply witnessing the feelings that we have labeled depression? It's very subtle. This is very subtle. Okay? But it opens up some space because you're witnessing it, aren't you? I mean, that's pretty much self-evident. We're used to saying, I'm depressed. I get depressed all the time, right? But that too is just a thought that's being witnessed, right? And we take that thought out of it, and then we're just experiencing some energetic patterns, right? And the one having the experience, is that one depressed? Remember, that one's the real you, the one that's observing this whole thing, right? And so now you're having a direct experience of it, right? Without resistance, without an attempt to change it or fix it or make it go away, right? And so now you can watch it just do whatever it does. And eventually it will dissipate. It may come back, but it will dissipate. Now, when it dissipates, we don't project anything on that space. Oh, it is not here now. No anticipation of it coming back because there's no resistance. No fighting with it. No, I hope it does. Just enjoy the quiet of that moment. And if there's extra energy for you to do creative things where it's not interfering, just enjoy those things, right? If it comes back again, you're put yourself in exactly the same position. You are the one aware of it. Is that one subject to the ups and downs of the nervous system? The answer is no, but I want you to discover that for yourself. And it's no different. Any illness you have, anyone would have. The doubting thoughts, any kind of mental or emotional activity that degrades our quality of life, but also tries to get us to identify with it. All of it is appearing against this background of the unmoving, unchanging consciousness that you are. Now notice, that is the place you're looking at it from, right? Nothing could take you out of that place. That is where you're looking at this from. Nothing can disturb that, right? And this bubbles up, it happens, and it goes away. So you don't go with it. So you are obviously not that. You are something else. These are temporary states, maybe not pleasant, but they're temporary. They come and they go, and you note them coming and going. So you're not that, right? You are not depressed. You are simply experiencing what is called depression, which is a set of thoughts and emotions and sensations in the body. And we're just like scientists, we're just looking really, really close. We're picking it apart to see what's actually there, rather than just trying to make it go away or letting ourselves become labeled as I'm depressed or I'm depressive, right? Does that help you, PD? Does everything happen for a reason? Let's do this first, right? And then you can see that everything, as it says in the Bible, all things work together for good for those that love God. And so the answer is everything happens to bring you to see who you actually are. And so now engaging with this depression in the way I'm showing you is actually bringing you to see more clearly who you really are, which is where the ultimate freedom from everything lies. And in your last one, do we have free will? It's a very complicated question. The answer is no, and then yes, and then no again. And it's getting on time here, so I can't get that far into it. But when you are completely unconscious, when you are completely identified with the nervous system, with the body, with the functioning of the mind, with that sense of that limited self-image, then no, it's totally robotic. Everything is conditioning, right? There's no choice when we are nothing other than our conditioning. Just like the computer has no choice as to what it does. When I hit a key, that's what it does. It has no choice about that. The nervous system is just a bunch of events, triggered, response. And these are all programmed in the system. They're unconscious. There's nobody there. Now, as consciousness begins to awaken, which you have, just as we're talking about, I'm the consciousness aware of the depression or the illness or the addiction or whatever. I'm the consciousness aware of it. Now there's consciousness. And all of a sudden, oh, that is a reactive pattern. I recognize it as a reactive pattern. And on that level, I can say, I can choose not to follow the whole reactive pattern, right? This is consciousness in the state of having choice. But then there's a state that goes even beyond that, where I am nothing but consciousness, and even the one who's exercising a choice is simply appearing in consciousness. And then the question of free will or no free will, choice or no choice, is transcended. It's subsumed into this place where it's neither choice nor not choice. It's just what is. Don't try to grab all of that all at once. Just keep focusing on making yourself increasingly conscious and present with whatever you happen to be experiencing emotionally or mentally, remembering who you are, the place in which you are actually viewing from. And I just noticed your other question about any advice. Where'd you go? Hops around. Any advice to feel liberated from my body? Do this, because the body is also something else, just appearing in consciousness. And or feel love. Don't worry about that. It'll come. Consciousness is love. They're the same thing, right? Sat Chit Ananda is the way they put it in Hindu. Sat, which is being, which is pure existence. Consciousness, which is I am aware of consciousness. And Ananda, which means bliss, love. It is being itself. So at first, it just feels like stillness. It's not emotional high. It is just this feeling of peace, and it is total allowing. It's nothing but compassion and love. Everything it looks at is bathed in love, because love, light, consciousness, awareness, truth, the I am, God is love. So don't concern about it. It's your nature. Don't worry, right? Don't worry about feeling it as an emotion. It'll come. Trust me. Sorry for all the questions, Jeep. I'm aware of my thoughts and feel that I am, but I'm confused whether I'm the ego feeling itself. You're not. The ego can't feel. The ego doesn't exist, okay? The ego can't feel. You feel. Consciousness feels. Can a brick feel, right? Can this trackpad feel? No, you feel. Your body doesn't even feel. You do. Consciousness does. So don't be confused about this. You're not the ego being. The ego is simply a pattern of thought that consciousness has mistakenly identified with. But the feeling, the creativity, the energy, the life belongs to consciousness. The ego does not exist as a thing. It's a projection of consciousness. And consciousness just forgot itself, right? So you're good. You're aware of your thoughts and life. That awareness is it. That's what's doing all of the feeling. Thank you, my friend. You're doing just great. Kesavadas. Good morning from India. I see the light and the warm space, but how do I see this or not get this obscured in difficult circumstances? Family suffering due to separation. All right. Is there not something that is aware of the obscuration? Isn't there something aware of the difficult circumstance, family suffering, and its cause? So is the awareness of all of this being obscured by it? It's very subtle. Right? Now, what you're doing is you're seeing the light in the warm space, right? But that sense of being disconnected, right, of separation, which is a very powerful emotion, especially from family. I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe it was a divorce or something took place. But yes, there's an energetic feeling there of a disconnect of something that means something to you. So of course that is going to result in an emotional state that isn't going to feel all full of light and love and warmth. It's going to feel the sense of separation. I want to bring you back to the place that is seeing the emotional turmoil and the entire circumstance. And the place you are seeing that from is the light and warm place. So don't project that light and warmth out as an emotional state. It's your being. It is the quiet, still place that is actually witnessing all of this. This is really important to get, because it will free you forever from the emotional ups and downs that are inevitable in life. It does not end them, okay? If it did, we'd all become kind of robotic flatliners, right? You want to feel the intense joy. You want to feel the ecstasy of love, but that means you're also going to feel the enormous grief of loss. That's life, and we don't want to limit any of it, right? So you are that which witnesses the entire range of experience that human life is capable of. That is the consciousness. Now just sink into that for a second, that which is witnessing it. These upheavals come and go. The ecstatic moments come and go, do they not? Right? But you do not. That which notices it come, watches it while it's here, and notices it go, does not go with it and was here before it. So what is that? In other words, who are you? Because it's clearly you are the one that's watching it, right? So who are you? So are you seeing the light and the warm space? Or are you the light and the warm space that is seeing all the rest? Take that deeply into your heart, right? Really let that sink down into your heart. Are you just something seeing light and warmth, or are you that light and warmth? And even beyond light and warmth. And just let that be there. Gonna have to be, oh boy, quite a few more here. Bo says, I can see it clearly now. Thanks, G, for identifying the person I was talking from. Great. Wonderful. I get it. Consciousness feels life. Yes, I'm eternal consciousness feeling life, feeling this body. Oh, Mr. Vids, yes, I've confused myself as this body and mind. I am consciousness awakening to itself. I am everywhere and the base which everything exists. I live as myself and within my colorless self in the void that I am. I actually feel in this PD a sense of genuine awakening. These aren't just words you've heard. You got it. Yes, yes. Now just cherish that. Your mind is not done with you. It's not going to just turn into the little puppy dog now and say, well, this is wonderful, right? Just notice that everything that comes up now in the mind is appearing to you, right? It isn't you. You are feeling the life in this body. You are feeling the mind in this body, in all of its aspects, right? And it will try to invite you back into identification, right? You're just not going to go. Danica says, wonderful discussion. Thank you. Sab Sab, good evening from Sab in Paris. Hi, Sab. Your favorite uncle? Help. My best friend, Peppy the Frog, is facing government discrimination to be called a hate symbol. Peppy's worldwide and they demand equality. Well, all right. Have fun. Let's see. Kesavada say, I am the light that sees the suffering. The light is shining on the suffering of separation from wife and my 14-year-old son. And my 14 is with my son. Thank you, GP. I am the light. Yes. Yes, be the light. And that will adjust all the circumstances to bring you into a proper relationship with your ex-wife and a proper relationship with your son. Be the light. You are the light. Recognize it, right? The light, pure light of consciousness. Carrie says, thank you so much. Carrie in Oakland. All right, I got through the list here. How about that? Wonderful. So good to spend this time with you guys. It is just so gratifying for me. It is it's so wonderful to witness the awakening. The awakening. Remember, the word Buddha is a Sanskrit word which means the awakened one. It's pointing not to someone who has awakened, but the one that is awakened to itself. It is consciousness in its totality that is awakening. You could say God is waking up from her dream. So, Lisa's thanks, fantastic. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Satsang, boom, fantastic satsang. Oh, that was all from Lisa. Thank you so much. Namaste from David. Okay, wonderful. G3. Very good, everybody. Oh, PD is. I am so delighted. Wonderful, wonderful. Ava, thanks for satsang. Great as always. Wonderful. Great. Thank you, everybody. Mwah. I love you so much. Till next time. Namaste.